All right, 7 o'clock. I'm going to call us to order. Everyone could please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
That brings us to approval of the February 3rd, 2020 board meeting minutes. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Ellen. Is there a second?
Oh,
Second by Heather. Fine. Jared, you had something?
Correction for the second page budget committee report. I believe I reported that. Scott did not.
Okay. Anybody have anything else? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstaining? Motion carries. Correspondence?
Just a few things this evening. We have a couple of, we thought, nice little snippets from Bartlett. One where they're doing mystery science investigations in Mrs. Mullen's first grade class, and another one where children are making Valentine's Day cards for veterans. And lastly, I have a letter that I wrote to the superintendent in Pembroke, letting them know about the board's approval of the request that they had made for a non-resident student. So that correspondence is in here as well.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Commendations, good news? Brendan, you want to start?
So a lot's going on right now at GHS. First and foremost, Winter Carnival kicked off today. This is a week full of games and competition between the classes, and it will all come together for an Assembly Friday, which the whole school seems to be looking forward to. In addition, Empower last week had their Respect Week, which is a week dedicated towards raising respect for healthy relationships. This resulted in a lot of people in the school wearing orange on Friday, as well as a variety of events at lunches and at sporting events and at the plays, raising awareness for healthy relationships. Empower is also being very busy right now, having their Women's Shelter Drive. It started last week and it's continuing up until the start of break. They're raising money and products for women in need, anywhere from maternity products to just toiletries. So it's, if any of you want, you can help out. There's a box out in the lobby. And the last thing is that All Shook Up, I would like to congratulate everyone in there, in that musical, because I went Saturday and it was amazing. And to anyone who hasn't gone, I'd highly urge you to go check it out. The shows are Friday and Saturday at 7 p.m. and also Saturday at 2 p.m.
It's about a 3-hour show, right, Brandon?
2.5.
2.5, yeah.
A little under 3.
Yeah, 7 to 9:30, I think.
Yeah.
Great, thanks, Brandon. Anybody else? Ginny?
I would like to echo, All Shook Up was amazing. The talent was just really amazing. It was fun. And Ms. McKernan gave me some information. The Jazz All-State Music Festival was on a Saturday as well. I think maybe Friday night as well. And he was very pleased that 4 people from Goffstown High School participated in jazz band. There was Murray McKay from trombone, Abby Sudak from alto sax, Elena Winrow from baritone sax, and all-state honors jazz choir, Maya Whitten, who also was one of the 2-stop scorers statewide, alto voice. All of these students also participated in All Shook Up on Saturday. The Jazz Fest finished at 4, and Ms. McKern flew them back here, and they were all set and ready to participate in the All Shook Up Saturday night, and it was amazing. So kudos to these kids. They're doing such a good job at All-State, and then coming back and doing their best for All Shook Up.
Thanks, Ginny. Anybody else? Go ahead.
I'll just comment, and I'm not sure if we'll be talking about this later, but I was really impressed on voting day with the amount of people that stopped by to find out about the kindergarten. The display was great. A lot of people were interested, so I think that was a good job. Good job to the team, whoever pulled that together.
Scott did the heavy lifting on that.
On the infographics.
Yeah. I thought it looked terrific to catch people's eye. You know, you coming by and seeing the videos.
Yep.
I caught people's eyes right off the bat to stop and look for a while. And
I think they felt safe to go to the video, and then they would come to you to ask questions.
I just wanted to share, though, that we were not able to do it at the Bartlett School simply because of space. So the moderator said that we could have that display as long as we caught people after they voted. And in Bartlett, there was not that opportunity to put a Prometheum board because it's all one-way traffic. So we did put the infographic there and the handouts, but we couldn't put a display.
that's too bad.
Ellen?
Yeah, just two things real quick. Maple Ave, I don't know if all the schools do this classic book fair the same week or not, but I had the opportunity to volunteer there. And what a wonderful, structured, organized way to do this. The kids, every one of them were fantastic in their purchasing and waiting online and waiting there. And I actually learned how to use the computerized cash register, which I think is great. But also, I don't know if it says it on the video, but someone I know actually said to me about the Glen Lake, oh, that's for full-day kindergarten. I said, no, that's for the existing half-day program in our preschool. I don't want anybody to think that what we're adding on there is for full day. And this was somebody who knows me. And I was like, oh my gosh, I hope we made that clear enough. This is for the existing program and the space needed to continue with it.
Thank you, Ellen. That brings us to public comment. I don't see any members of the public here tonight, so we'll move to our standing committee reports. I'll start with policy. We have a couple of policies up for first read. These will look familiar because we already approved them at the SAU level. They've been reviewed by Kate McGrath and also by the Policy Review Committee to make sure they're appropriate for the school district. And these are first read, but if anyone has any questions on the first read, I'd be glad to take them. If not, we'll see them again in 2 meetings. Okay, that's all I have. Our next Policy Review Committee is March 9th at 5:30 at the SAU. PNC?
PNC has not met since our last meeting a couple of weeks ago. Our next meeting is March 2nd, 6:15.
Thank you, Retta. CNE?
CNE has not met since our last meeting also. Our next meeting is March 9th at 7 p.m. at the SAU. And I just wanted to say that our stipend committee has not met recently. We had a couple meetings and we haven't met. We don't have an ongoing meeting, so I'm hoping to set up some
Let's see if we can get that scheduled
continuing
and get that sent
meetings
out to the
so that we
committee.
can continue our working on the stipend program.
Great. Thanks, Jenny. Building Committee?
Data committee finished up its sort of phase 1 with the data assembly and coming up with all sorts of ideas and passing them on to the logistics to price out some of them, or if not all of them, with the various options that we had. So logistics will be meeting next with all that, and the data subcommittee will be meeting. We have a scheduled meeting for March 3rd at 7 o'clock to look more at using the data we have, more short-term, what we need to do, as opposed to long-term building project, what we may or may not need to do to meet the needs that are there now and what's coming up. So we're going to continue working, and I think it's all been passed over to Jared, hasn't it?
Ellen, if I could just add one thing, if I may. In addition to the work that the data subcommittee has been doing, we also have engaged with a town planner, gentleman named Mark Frugere, that we have actually done some pretty extensive work with in New Boston, who will be doing, I would say, in an enhanced enrollment study slash demographic analysis. Mark is going to be looking at all of the houses that have sold and been built over the last several years and try to make some enrollment projections based on what the most recent history is, that if we have a 3-bedroom house go up for sale, we can expect X number of kids. So Mark is available, he's very knowledgeable, great guy to work with, and he has some availability to start working with us at the beginning of March. So that'll be another, it's really important for us to get a handle on what we believe our enrollment is going to do, but as we know, since 2015, that has proved to be an incredibly unscientific process for us. So in 2015, when we had the New Hampshire School Administrators Association do a full demographic study, the projection was decreased enrollment, particularly at the elementary school level, which of course has not been realized. So we'll continue to work on a little more of a custom approach.
If I may, did you negotiate a price? Because I know the board authorized up to 10,000?
So we have an hourly rate that he had charged us in New Boston,
And he's gonna
which
kinda
was
work
very
on-
fair.
Okay.
So we anticipate that it would be the same hourly rate.
Okay.
And so then, just based on how much work he's doing, I would not anticipate we would come to that number. I just don't think there's that much time for him to do it.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything to add, Jared? On your,
For the data subcommittee?
no,
No logistics.
For logistics.
Sure. Our next meeting is March 12th at 7:30 here at GHS, and then the April meeting will be April 16th here at 7:30 at GHS. We did receive the ask from the data committee. We're expanding that and also reached out to our colleague on the New Boston School Board to understand, or at least ask them, what grades would they want to include in our study? Or I should say, should they be included in our study was the first question, and if so, what grades they want to include in our study. We're working on the algebraic formulas so that we can say, based on the projection or projected enrollment of X number of students at whatever grades, it should spit out the cost that's being asked for with the data committee. So we have a bunch of assumptions and constraints that will be coming back.
Based on a per square footage cost, Jared,
Yeah.
that's how you
Per
guys?
square footage, which is agnostic of land development, because I know some of the items that were listed there was looking at the attached
Yep.
parcel.
The Norman Road
Which
property.
would be, of course, some type of development engineering that would need to take place. So we really don't have a good understanding of what that cost would be.
Okay.
And we wouldn't have that until we use some impact fees to probably look at that surveying that would need to be done.
One thing I had recommended to Randy as a possibility that your subcommittee might want to consider, we have worked with a local architect on some cost projections. Actually, New Boston had engaged with a local architect. That would be another possibility. So if you guys were looking for, someone who's, this is what they do, they could help with some of those construction estimates. And I think the last time we had this gentleman do this, it was pretty short money, and they had updated some construction costs that New Boston was considering. It was really helpful for us that we felt like we had, a knowledgeable, experienced person looking at those cost estimates. So just another offer.
Yeah, thank you.
Budget committee?
Budget committee, there is no meetings on the schedule at all, at any time. So I'm sure that they'll start being reestablished after the voting takes place in March.
Much deserved a break.
Yeah, that was my thought too. A&F,
A&F met this evening, and we would like to, by unanimous consent, bring before you a manifest. I would like to make the motion that we accept the manifest in the total amount of $2,495,207.
motion by Dan, second by Heather. Go ahead, Dan.
Yep, it's a little higher because we have health trust and retirement system and the dues and Primex and TSA counting for payroll and associated, $2.1 million. Special education, 5,000 and above. We have 2 students, January through June, for regional services, company regional services, 49,766. Birch Tree, 1 student for March, $10,573, and Strong Foundations, a number of students for January, $9,573. General expenses, $5,000 and above. We paid the SAU their February assessment of $121,261. We paid Dead River for propane, $23,108. Eversource for electricity, $22,880. The Goffstown Truck Center for the athletics and the late bus, and the Manchester School of Technology, $21,607. CDW Government LLC, these are for HB 1612 related projects. That's the security, computer-related technology, $18,140. These are funds that were carried forward from fiscal year 19. Vex Robotics, grant funded, $16,799, and our custodial supplies from Home Depot Pro, $9,766. We also had food. We usually buy food every month, $12,797. And the note says food and commodities, milk, including chocolate. That's our business administrator trying to keep me happy with the
Entertained, if nothing else.
So, there we go.
Important details.
That's what we have for the manifest this evening.
Any questions?
I know that you said it, and I just want to make sure I fully understand it, Dan. For the CDW government, is that coming out of Fund 11 because it was carried forward from prior year?
Yes.
Thank you.
So if we actually, I'm not sure if, there was probably, I think we brought forward more than what we actually completely expended, so whatever we don't expend is gonna
Goes
lapse
back,
back and we get returned for, tax relief.
Any other questions? Seeing none, motion by Dan, second by Heather. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining?
I'm
Ellen?
in favor. I had
Yeah,
a
okay.
question.
Go ahead,
but
Ellen.
It wasn't about these numbers.
Okay.
Can we get an update from food service as to where the dollars are there?
April. That's what we-
Yes, we can.
Yep.
How does April sound?
Well,
Do you
is,
think it's,
I was thinking mid-year and then end of year.
well, I think the April one is because we wanted to get ahead of, that's when we normally do it, and let us know where we are so that we can start the expectation for year end, because we're not gonna change prices, but the expectation, it doesn't mean we can't meet again in June, so to speak. I don't
Well,
think.
last year we met somewhere during the year and we saw that it was in the negative. And then when
That
we
was a-
heard the final numbers, they were in the black. But we wanted to stay on top of how it progresses with the changes we did make.
Okay,
Do
so,
we know what
They-
those changes?
They
what-
will remain in the black. The only possibility that they could have is there could be a potential need to dip into their fund balance a bit. So I think that's the
So
piece that,
I meet with Megan, if not every month, and every other month. She's already alerted me that we have a piece of equipment, I think it's a steam table here, might need replacement. But I'll clue you in. I think what we try to endeavor is to have her come twice a year, to let you know where things are at. As of now, there are no, as the superintendent stated, we appear to be in good shape. We may have to dip into fund balance to replace equipment, but we'll let you know that when she meets with you. Is there anything that you want her to specifically address? Because I'll send her an email.
The
email
only
now.
thing is my same concern. I don't mind using the fund balance that we have from food service, but if our revenues from food service do not remain in the black sufficiently enough, at some point, we're gonna run out of those funds.
yes.
Right.
And that's what I'm asking primarily about is, are they enough to sustain us without that fund? Eventually, I mean, yeah, it's not in the red, that's great, but we are still dipping into the other account and we're not seeing anything going back into it, we will eventually not have anything to go to unless the revenues are up
think,
enough.
if I
Just my
may, I
thought.
think the issue is that you want to make sure that your operating expenses, you're covering your operating expenses with your ordinary revenue you're getting from the food service, as well as your vending machines, et cetera. Your fund balance is your cushion, and it is there so that if you need to replace equipment, that you can. And I think Megan does look at that to say, okay, if we know that we're going to have to replace equipment, she does factor that in to the food prices. But just knowing that the fund balance is there to kind of address a short-term issue, like a steam table going down or a refrigerator going down, knowing that she then may need to adjust the prices the following year to kind of make up for that.
That's pretty much
Yeah.
what my concerns
Yep.
were. Thank you.
So, April?
Yeah.
So, we did not have any budget transfers. And updates, Scott and team have been working on those, annual contracts that we do, so he's working with the bus companies now. Some contracts going back and forth, some new stuff, that should be coming before the big board, that's us, in the next few weeks, I would think. We also probably, as a subcommittee, not recommending we continue with a official driving school, that we let that one subside and we just let all the driving school happen the way it goes. I think the old style was the state got involved in driver education, and there was some money that came back to the school for kids, but I think that's been gone for decades. And so there could be liability issues and things of that nature, and there's no real need. And there's been cooperation for multiple driving schools that actually do service and come in and take kids, and kids can sign out and do their driving during the day when they don't have time to come back. So that's gonna be, we're not gonna see one of those contracts come forward. That's not our recommendation. It could if you guys want it, but it's not our recommendation. And we will talk about the construction bid in a different lineup.
Ellen, you have questions?
So what's the status of the situation for the kids who've already paid or already signed up? Is that all cleared up so that they're getting what they're supposed to be getting?
We'll have a further update on that later.
Oh, that's later on? Okay, sorry.
Steve?
Yes.
we are-
Oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry, are you done?
I am passing off to Heather.
Well, the other thing that was discussed, Scott brought, I don't know if you had this for everybody.
Not for everybody, no.
So Scott kind of put together stipends that could be paid for the high school, whether it's athletics or non-athletics. Because we need to make some decisions quickly, and I know you haven't met, so we would like to have some kind of update before our next meeting, March 2nd, right? Is that the next one?
That's our next.
As to where are we going, what are we doing, to try to get some answers to people that have been asking. You know, this is just for the high school, it's a pretty significant amount.
And if memory serves me, we have about $23,500 right now in
Right.
available funds for stipends that's not spoken for.
Exactly.
Last year, the board approved volleyball and lacrosse, and I want to say, Scott, was that around 10 grand? Does that sound
Yep,
about
right?
right?
Around 10, yep.
What I think Scott and I might encourage the board to consider would be to fund the volleyball and lacrosse programs as you did last year, and then as kind of a first step, and then the second step would be to consider some of the items on that list
Well, we
for.
also need the middle school.
And,
list.
and there's, I said to
And
Scott, there's a
anything for the
few things at the elementary
elementaries.
schools
Right.
that they do
But
as well.
we're not going anywhere again, like we start and we stop, so we're kind of pushing nicely to try to get some progress at our next meeting. So-
Understood, and I might encourage the board to consider a two-step process. So the first step, if the board is so inclined to support volleyball and lacrosse, to do that as the first step. And then hopefully the subcommittee will get some traction again, and then consider kind of a secondary approval at a later date.
The A&F committee did not universally embrace that direction. I just wanted to share
Okay.
that. The discussion that came up was that there were certain members of the board at the time last year when that was voted on, that they voted specifically for volleyball and for lacrosse, was because they demonstrated a hardship that they could not fundraise due to the gym being out of commission. And there were members who voted specifically to give those groups preference simply because they felt that there was a hardship. And so when I did state, our discussion, Brian, about should
Yep.
we tackle those and then work on the others, it was not, I want to put anybody on the spot, but it was one that I think needs further discussion here as to where you go.
And-
I just wanted to say that I'd rather, if the committee does not think that they're going to be in a good position, let's say by April or May, then that's okay, but then I think if the board wishes to spend those funds, those 23.5, then it might have to be this board making those tough decisions
Right.
one more time,
Okay.
until your committee, Ginny, is able
Is
to then
ready
really
to-
get their arms wrapped around it.
Yep.
And we just wanted to have that discussion or put it on the radar sooner rather than later.
Okay, so we have 23,000 to use. and that-
23,500,
And that can be used this budget year,
yes.
okay.
And the only piece I might add, Scott, in terms of the position that volleyball and lacrosse likely find themselves in, is I believe that they have stopped many elements of their fundraising because they believe that the board was picking up those coaching stipends.
But
Well, so we,
I don't-
If I can pipe in
we,
here.
we might want to hear from the volleyball and lacrosse boosters, because I think at this point, I don't know that they have funds to cover coaches this spring.
The problem is, at this board, when we made those decisions, we heard and we said this is a one-time
We
effort
did.
because there
We
was
did.
confusion supposedly in a prior year discussion, and then we made it clear that it was a one-time thing. We're gonna work on the contract. So we need another different style argument in order to convince me to sway away from that.
I think volleyball is one of the ones that really should be on our list, because I think if we look back history-wise, I think volleyball is one that's one of the,
That would be good, if you can
One
come
of
up with
the-
that list that comes, not because they're not doing their fundraising again, but if there's a
I think-
reason other than what they came to talk to us about,
if I
that we
remember
can make that
correctly,
decision.
and my memory can be really wrong,
Yeah.
but I think they're one of the groups that a really long time ago, one of the first
Sure.
groups that came to us and said, may we, and we said, yeah, go ahead. I could be wrong, but I think volleyball is in that category.
It'd be nice to see if we can do
I
some
think that's what we need.
architectural
would
research
Take some
and
research to
find that out.
find out
And if that's the
exactly what
case,
that
that would give us
is.
a reason to make that kind of decision.
Yeah, if we're gonna make this decision without what we hoped would be some direction from the subcommittee, we're gonna at least need some information in which to weigh and base it. Otherwise, it's whoever's, the squeakiest wheel, whoever came first, and that's not the way I'd wanna base my decision-making on it.
And there's not enough money to take care of all
Correct.
the groups that want to be taken care of.
Right.
So
Oh, yeah.
you're not going to be able to get the entirety of that list.
And that's just the high school.
That's just the high
That's
school.
not-
And I have
Including
another,
everything else.
I have another list as well that's been
Right.
given to me, so I don't know how much of this matches up with that other list. But I think my thought is if we do these two, then we really need to do non-sports. The rest of our money would definitely have to be non-sports, because we've heard enough people come here say they would like some non-sports stipends to be paid too, so
Sure.
I think that's important.
Brandon?
I would like to say with complete bias that volleyball is something we should look towards funding because, knock on wood, but it's looking like they're going to be really good this year. So if they go without funding, that could ruin our shot at the state championship.
Thanks, Brandon. Ellen?
We had, I don't know where the committee is or how often they met, but do we at least have the data, the volume of data we had asked to be produced and was told it was going to come through this committee? Is that data put together?
We do have the surveys.
No, the data of,
That's what she's talking about.
Yes,
How many-
that's part of the surveys?
that's what the survey
The
is.
sur-
It's
the surveys
data.
are about what are the groups, how many students, how many times they meet, the frequency.
And who has gotten
Who
paid.
gets
Who
what,
gets
who
paid,
gets
who
what
doesn't.
now?
And-
How
and
long
remember,
they've been
it's-
doing it.
It's more
and-
complicated because, for example, on that list, when we look at performing arts as one
Yeah.
one entity for consideration, they charge for their performances. So when we do the math, now whether they should charge or shouldn't charge is a ideological discussion that we could have, but their gate covers the costs associated with those programs.
And that should be part of the
All,
information.
all of the elements that we collect a gate are part of the consideration, and Scott and I have a pretty good handle on what those all are, but, I mean, we've gotta get that committee to finish its work, so I apologize that it's, if we haven't had the traction that we need, we'll get that back on
Would
track.
you
When do we
please? I'd
expect
appreciate that.
a report to come back to us?
I think the report was, somewhere in the May time period, so they still have time. That there were gonna be recommendations that would be brought forth to this board, the full board, for your consideration. And then whether the school board decides to take action or not is gonna be up to you guys.
Okay, so this is not like the planning was, sits and stalls until negotiation starts. This is something that, well, it came out
Well,
of,
this one's a little unique, Ellen, because there's $23,500
Yeah,
potentially
I
on the
understand.
table. So I think because the board had made some increases in funding over the last couple of years and through the last contract, I think that just changes, it's a little different for this.
okay, so we can make those decisions when we
Yep.
have all the information. And we can, okay, so we have, I know I'm not comfortable making any decisions on the 23.5 without the information.
Yeah. And that information is, it has been,
And it kind of bothers me a bit that we just heard that some group stopped fundraising because they thought they were getting money.
Well, I'm speculating there, but
that-
I think we heard last spring that that those two groups had changed their entire fundraising structure because they believed that their positions were gonna be funded by the school district. And I don't wanna speak for them, because they all came last spring, so they can certainly come and give us the state of the state again.
Might be a good
I-
idea.
Mr. Chair, I just wanted to make sure that Ellen's idea of what she needs for data is somewhat similar than what Jared or Janelle or others want. So, if Ginny has certain data, which I know includes how many hours do you spend with the students and all that other stuff, but you also want to know how long has this group been asking for
That-
funding? And as
Well-
long, if that's what you want and Ginny has that data, great.
well,
But
you know what, but the asking is one thing. How long have you
Been in
been?
existence.
Have you been in existence?
That's the
That
important
is-
part,
So I
not
guess
how
what
long
I'm
have
trying
you
to
been
say is that
asking.
if there are any individual criteria that board members
Mm-hmm.
have, I think it's imperative that you get it to Ginny so
Yeah.
that she knows, so that you don't have a month or two from now, you're like, well, what about this criteria?
Because
Well, you didn't ask.
we have initial information, and then the plan is to send out a secondary survey to, after we put this together, to see what else it is that we need to know. So if there are any other questions, let me know, so that that
Certainly,
information
when
can
did
be
this
looked at.
activity, whether it's athletics or something else, start?
Right.
And anything from the gate that comes in and the fundraising they do, just because the board, the district might be funding portions of it, doesn't mean the boosters shouldn't keep fundraising. So,
So I guess just A&F would like to just have some update at our next board meeting, whether it's on
Okay.
the agenda, just to touch base with you to see where you are, what you need, or anything like that, if we could.
Okay.
Just-
Sounds good.
I think that was it, right, Dan?
Yes.
Thank you. Superintendent report?
Thank you. We provided you with an updated, what we're calling the snow day calendar. And so just wanted to make sure we put this on the website. We've tried to advertise and post this. You can see now the last day of school, as of right now, is tentatively scheduled for Thursday, June 18th. So with the 3 snow days we've had, that's not too bad. We've had 3 2-hour delays. The most recent one was last week on the 13th. Weather has been a little tricky and unpredictable. But so that's information for your information. We will be on, schools will be closed next week for vacation. I think that's good timing. Gives us a chance to do some real deep cleaning, to make sure we can get all the journey children out of the schools and have a little bit of a reprieve. So we'll look forward to that. I had shared with this board at your last meeting that we were continuing to have ongoing discussions about some concerning elementary student behavior in our schools. There was an interesting article or a video segment on WMUR over the weekend. It's on their website right now, that this is a statewide issue and concern. The president of the teachers union, NEA New Hampshire, was interviewed, talked about the challenges that many schools are facing. So we will continue to meet. I'm meeting with the elementary administrators again on Thursday, and they're bringing some proposals for us to discuss and review a little further. I already mentioned Mark Fougere, the town planner. Will continue to get some information rolling with him. Regarding the building committee, I think that we have an executive meeting scheduled on the night of the March vote. We might just want to double check and make sure that you guys were good with that. I just saw it when Denise
When's the
was,
vote, the 10th?
yep, when Denise was
Yeah.
doing the posting.
I shared with you, Ellen, that I couldn't be there for that.
I just don't know if that's a challenge for you guys or not.
It is humbly requested that we delay it to 7:30 for those people that are working the polls that close at 7 o'clock, that way they have an opportunity to attend.
He works the polls and
So,
he's not done till
I
probably
can't
10,
go
right?
until like 9 or 10, yeah.
It's not all about
So
you.
I'm done, right. But I shared that with Ellen already.
Okay, I just wanted to point out that we saw that was a
But
conflict.
my vice chair has expressed that she would not be able to be at any of our meetings until 7:30. If we can delay it by 30 minutes.
You can do whatever you want.
That's
Just
my
let us know,
request.
because we'd have to make sure we get the postings.
This is the executive committee?
Yes.
No, this is
No,
the
this
full
would
building
be the
committee.
full,
This is the full building committee.
March
on the
10th.
The meeting on the 10th.
It's a
Right.
full building
It's
committee.
a full committee, yes.
I'm okay with 7:30.
7:30 it is.
I think I'm working the polls too, but not after it's done, so. So if you can get that information out to all the committee members.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mrs. Moran included some information Primex sent out today. They're doing a program called Academy for Good Governance, and there are all kinds of free trainings and professional development for school board members. We wanted to share that with you. We received an abutters notice that Eversource is going to be replacing a pole right by the Glen Lake School. They notified us because I guess it's in a wetland area, so that's not anything that we would have any kind of a concern about. We just wanted to let you know that all the abutters were noticed that there's a pole that needs to be replaced, and it's in a funky area.
And the pole replacement does not modify the delivery of energy or telephones or anything.
I mean, there could be an interruption when they're actually changing the pole out, but they usually figure that out. So we
If it's
hope,
during the day, that wouldn't be
Yeah.
a handy
but
situation.
depends on how long it is, but yeah, we would certainly hope to be notified when they're gonna do that. We don't right now. Wanted to let you know that the town reports have been submitted to town hall. Everything's gone to the printers. And my last piece, I think I mentioned a little bit, the planning committee time, that was an outcome of our last negotiation with the Teachers Association, has finished their work. They wrote up a couple-page summary of recommendations, so I would think that we would want the full board to hear that information, probably
Whenever-
April or May. I mean, it might, we could stagger the two different committees if that would be helpful, but I did receive some information from
I think
them.
a report would be quick, because it's not something that's gonna happen right now. It's for negotiations.
Would it be the
So-
board's pleasure for me to try to schedule that maybe in April?
Well, if it's done, let's just get it over with.
Try to do it sooner?
Sure, why not? I
Okay.
mean, you
Fine
got
by
it
me.
ready?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
okay with that.
I think that makes
Everybody
sense
else
to
is
me.
doing
I would ask the folks who served on that to try to come
Sure.
if they could.
Sure.
I'd like them to be able
Would
to
that be-
present their recommendations and see if the board has any
Would
questions.
that be public or non-public?
I think that would be public.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just recommendations. So at this point, what the board would potentially choose to do with that from a negotiations perspective would become non-public. But just the recommendations themselves is, I think, very appropriate to be in
Be
public.
aware of.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep. Okay, so we will plan that. And that was all I had. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. All right, no old business tonight,
Mr. Chair,
so.
just a
Yeah,
question
go
on
ahead,
the
Jared.
superintendent. In years past, I might have missed this at a meeting that I was absent at, but I know in the years past, there was snowmobile clubs had asked to use some of our land.
Yeah.
Was that actually asked for this past season?
No.
We never
seen it.
received that. I'm glad you brought that up. We normally have gotten every year I think they're called
Uncanonic,
Uncanonic
yeah.
Mountain
Mountain Riders or something like that.
That would have been last year in October or November.
recall.
I remember something, but I don't know what
There,
year it was.
there's one section in the
Yeah.
back of this property that their trails go across. We have not received anything from them.
Okay, I just wasn't sure, because I know that you said that we set up netting and things like that beforehand. I just didn't know if we took those precautions this time around. I know we're halfway through the season. I just
Yeah,
wasn't sure.
and really, I don't know if there's even been enough snow for snowmobiling down here, but, Scott, you don't recall seeing that, do you?
No, I don't.
Denise?
We did receive an insurance certificate of insurance that tells us that they're insured for up until July. So it could be that they came earlier this year, probably at the beginning of the year. I'll check it out.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
All set?
Thank you, Steve.
Okay. So, new business, we have a field trip request.
We have a field trip request that is out of state. This is for the high school performing arts group to go after school. So this will be after school gets out. They want to go see Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, which is being performed in Worcester, Massachusetts. And one of our former students, Sam St. Jean, is one of the leads in the play. Board members, you'll remember Jack. Do you remember Jack St. Jean, who used to be in Brandon's role? This is Jack's brother. And they're gonna get to, I think, get a kind of behind-the-scenes type of experience. And so they're leaving about 40 kids after school, returning about 10 p.m. on March 3rd, going to Worcester with multiple teachers, and Mrs. McCann will be the administrator attending that trip.
Move to approve.
Second,
By Ellen, second by Ginny. Any further discussion?
very cool.
The cost related, the transportation.
$40,
All borne by,
the students.
okay. How are they gonna get down here?
School bus?
Okay. Is that something that we're providing for them?
No, that's part of the
That's part of
cost.
the $40.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And so I don't know how much the tickets, I don't know if the tickets were free, but the $40 is the all-in cost.
It's the all-in cost
Yep.
for all of that, okay?
Yep.
Thank you.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? Great.
Thank you.
That's very cool.
That brings us to the Dunlake School Construction RFP release.
Sure, the next piece we have for you, and just to give a scope of how much we're talking about, this is the draft bid package that Stantec, which is our engineering firm, has put together. We did email electronic copies to board members today. We didn't want to print them for everybody. If anybody really wanted a copy of this, we'd be happy to print it for you. At this point, I would say this is about 90% done. It's there are a couple pieces that need to be included in here. For example, we haven't finished the location of the material being moved and trucked up to Mountain View. So that final location of where that information is going to be deposited, they haven't finished. And they also wanted to, Stantec did, to give the courtesy to Sarah, who is our town engineer, to allow her to see this and see if she has any questions. But at this point, the bid package is, as I said, about 95% done. What we were hoping to do is if there were any questions that anyone might have had, and it's very technical, it's hard to read. I think Dan had one good observation that we had restricted to no weekend work without approval of the owner. I don't have a problem if they want to work on the weekends, as long as it's not an issue with abutters at Glen Lake School. So I think we would strike that language. If they need to work on Saturdays or after school, or, you know, how to get it done, you know, hit the gas. So we want them to do that. But what we might ask at this point is, if the board is in favor of sort of the scope of the package, I'd like you to grant us the ability to release this when we finish the last little few details. My preference would be to do that and release it before vacation, as opposed to waiting until March 2nd for your approval and then releasing it after that, and then having a bid window after that. So we were hoping to try to get out ahead of this a little bit, if the board's in support of
I'll
that.
move to approve it with the additional information.
Got a question?
Jared?
Yeah, quite. I might have missed it in the RFP, but what's the window that we're giving for the RFP?
3 weeks.
3 weeks? And is it a minimum of how many people that are actually putting bids in? Or are we just saying 3 weeks and then we're
It-
prioritized based on the criteria?
It's just 3 weeks. So
Okay.
we had talked about, we usually either do a 2-week window or a 4-week window. We either have kind of a shorter or a longer window, and I split the difference for the 3. I thought that we want to have enough time, because there's quite a bit of information that the contractors have to provide to us, to give them sufficient time to do this. But I didn't want it to linger on for, 4 weeks by the time they even get their bid packages done and back to us. Because right now, with the one-time fiscal capacity disparity aid that we're receiving, all New Hampshire school districts are doing very similar types
We
of,
want to get moving on it.
yeah, and we kind of want to try to jump ahead of them.
So will this be due the week of the vote, the town vote?
It would be due 3 weeks after we finally release it.
Okay, so
So
it'll
if,
be afterwards.
yeah, so I
So
think
we
if,
know.
if we, release it towards the end of the week, 3 weeks from there.
Thank you.
Yep.
And there's no guarantee that we would accept any bid, and it's not low bid that's guaranteed.
Yep.
It would be the best benefit to the owners, that's
The
us.
best perceived value.
Yeah, the person,
Yep.
that would be a better,
Which I'm sure are documented and quantified somewhere within the RFP package.
somewhere in the 258 pages of details, the generality, the best perceived value isn't necessarily detailed of what that means.
Sometimes the cheapest proposals are not
The best
the
value
best
perceived.
value.
Because when they come back and say,
Right.
okay, well, this is how we're gonna put up the, tell you what, we're gonna pour the cement tonight, then we're gonna put the load on it tomorrow. Not the best thing, maybe. We wanna put some rebar in there, of course, it says so. We wanna give it some time to cure. The bid specs are pretty nice. I got to go through the whole thing today, cause I didn't have my day job to go to. So it was kinda fun to look at all of this stuff again.
The
Scott?
one thing that, I think that's a good point, we just got it this afternoon, I haven't had a chance to read it, but I think that there should be something in there, in the bid specs, have you done any work for the Goffstown or New Boston's, or SAU 19? Because I think that is very,
In a contract, it talks about a similar work for other
right,
uses, not just
Okay.
the towns that you're talking
Because
about.
I think that matters a lot, because a lot of times you put out a bid, but yet there's nothing in there about prior experience with that contractor, and that happens to weigh heavily, I think, for when people hire someone. I mean, if you've worked with them in the past, they've done a really good job, that may be a perceived value for many. So, but I agree, it probably should be in the bid itself.
I'll second Ellen's motion.
Thank you, Dan. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you.
Abstaining? Motion carries. That brings us to staffing. You have a request for additional
We
Chair
do.
support?
So I'm going to go through this request this evening, and I'm going to give you a heads up that there will be another request at your next board meeting on March 2nd. So right now, I have requests from Dr. Dolph looking to add 2 special education paras for one-on-one students for the remainder of the school year. One of these I have already approved as a temporary assignment. I would be looking for the board's approval for the remainder of the school year. So one is at Bartlett and the other is at Maple Ave. The total cost for the remainder of the school year is $14,700 each, so just shy of 30 grand for the rest of the school year to support these 2 positions. The third para position that I mentioned, we're doing a grant revision. So we anticipate the state approving us to pay for that request that I'll bring to you at your first meeting in March using grant funds. But we wanted to write the grant, get it approved before we brought the request to the board. But there wouldn't be, we have a little bit of money left from our current year's grant that we could use for the remainder of the school year.
I move approval of the request for 2 pairs.
Okay, motion by Ellen, second by Ginny. Janelle, you have a question?
I just had a question if we were thinking these pairs would follow through for next year.
The way that we do this, anytime we have a position that we come and ask for the board's approval, we would need to then ask you again next year and build it into the budget. So these positions, and sometimes kids move, so it could be that, one of these students might be here, but maybe another student moves away, so we have a position that we could transfer. But we anytime we add a position, we always get the board's approval. We did go through all of the 1,200 function, and there are sufficient funds in the salary and benefit lines already to cover the costs of both of these. So, just when we have vacancies, sometimes we don't fill them right away. We're not able to find people, but we have a little bit of money to cover these already right now with the existing budget. No transfers needed.
Any further questions? No? Motion by Ellen, second by Ginny. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Thank
Abstaining?
you.
Any other business this evening? Okay. So we do have non-public. I'll entertain a motion to go into non-public under 91A, :3, Roman 2, subsection C.
So moved.
Motion by Dan.
Second.
Second by Jared.
Yes.
Ellen?
Yep. Yes.
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 Pleasant evening.